Hey, good afternoon and welcome to the first layer. This is Ask for Help. And today I am not joined by Brian Baker. Brian had a family emergency today So
this is not the Ryan you're looking for.
This is not the Brian we're looking for. Today with me is my good friend and somebody we're going to be doing some work with here in the very near future. This is Morgan Pierce. Everybody say hello to Morgan today.
Hello, Morgan.
Hello, Jerry. How are you today?
Sunday, I'm sleepy.
Thank you for inviting me today, Richard. I really appreciate the opportunity. I've known you for a couple of years now, and all started off coming into a printing shop and talking with you, and so it's been a great experience ever since.
I can't tell you.
Happy to hop in here today and answer some questions, maybe from the perspective even of a customer who has learned about 3D printing and in that vein of things. So
awesome.
Yeah,
I can't tell you how much it means to me to have you on the show today, and maybe we'll kind of get you in here a little bit more in the future. Happy Father's Day to everybody. I see, Morgan, you're wearing your shirt from your boys.
It just came. It had to be worn today. I had lots of surprises this morning, and these are the two boys here. So there, I got to figure this out. There you go.
Yeah, you got it.
There we go.
Did you get breakfast?
I did get some yummy breakfast. Yes.
So this is Ask for Help. My grandkids didn't call me yet this morning. They'll probably call later on in the day, but that's okay. It's Father's Day. So on Father's Day, there's lots of things that happen, and if you're like me, you pick things that make you happy. What about you, Morgan? You were out looking at a house this morning when I phoned you.
Looking at a rental, because we are building in mahogany. So, I literally was looking at that at 11:30 in Seaton there. So
nice.
And the boys are actually one of them's gonna go. Speaking of grandfathers, one of them's gonna go for a little hike with his aunties and his grandfather, and they'll be enjoying that. And he'll be all tuckered out when he gets back. So perfect.
Very
the
cool.
Best.
So just to give our viewers a little bit of perspective, Morgan, you started 3D printing right around 3-4 years ago?
Yeah, give or take. I came online with the CR-10S craze era.
Mm-hmm.
My first printer was that, and I picked it up off of Amazon. I was looking for that build volume size. My original thought was I would print some train cars, and then the other impetus was the $900 Lego Death Star, and I was like, wait a minute. I can just print myself a Death Star. Exactly. And I can print lots of them. And I haven't looked back since. So there you go.
Awesome. Now, you're also doing a little bit of entrepreneurial work with your 3D printer. You have an Etsy store, correct?
Yeah. Wanted to explore that a little bit more. I like the creative side of things here as well. And so, I set up an Etsy shop, selling some models, a couple of models by Jeff Wicks of Hex 3D. Great modeler, by the way. If
Absolutely, I've got some of his.
Patreon, it's an amazing value, to be frank. And I've been running an Etsy store for a couple of years now. Still in that initial growth phase. But I just had 4 sales this week for a Datalorian thing that I was working on. It's up on my site there, sablecanada.etsy.com.
Feel free to insert
plug, but
the
I just
link.
did it. So there you go.
Yeah, put the link down in the chat so people can go and check out what you've got. So today we're going to take your questions. Morgan and I are going to answer your questions today. And Jerry's in the background. She's ready to put your questions up on screen. I'm going to quickly just do this for our members. For you guys that are members and those that might want to become members, it's real easy to support the show. You can go down, just click that little join button down at the very bottom, and it will take you to a page that shows you the different levels and what we offer in those levels for your anywhere from $2 a month, a cup of coffee, all the way up to $15 a month if you want to feel generous and you can afford that. I know times are tough. COVID hit everybody really hard. And now we can now finally see some light at the end of the tunnel. And I think that's great. So let's get into some questions. Do we have any yet, Jerry?
No, we do not.
We don't have any yet. Okay, well, somebody will come up with a question, I'm sure. So in the meantime, what are you working on right now, Morgan?
Actually, I would have needed to join a little bit earlier there, but the two printers, I'm actually printing off some bath bombs, which are great if you're into relaxing and doing some wellness things.
Oh, you mean the mold for the bath bomb?
The mold. Sorry, I'm not actually making the bombs themselves. Good call. You wouldn't want me to make those. They would probably, I don't know, not work and might not smell great. Anyways, but yeah, printing those, and I'm also printing off a mug, which I've got some of them. Actually, I've got one of them right here. Let me just grab it down. It's probably the easiest thing to do. So, let's get this right. So this is obviously a Star Wars inspired mug. I'm doing the Mandalorian one right now. So they've got the Mandalorian symbol in there. Do I have one of those? Oh yes, I do. There it is. So these are hex 3D. This doesn't mean to be a hex 3D show. If I can learn how to reverse my angles, there we go.
Up.
So there's the Mandalorian symbol there. So I'm actually printing it off in a printing one I'm printing right now is in a matte PLA, and I really enjoyed the matte PLAs. They take away a bit of the sheen, but also they I think they make for a nice. I'm just gonna grab one more mug here. Sorry for the little show and tell. But they give you a nice non-sheen, if you will. So this one has you can see a little bit there, but it's not as I could throw something here, something black right next to it, and you'll see something with the gloss on it. There we go. You'll see the difference hopefully there.
Absolutely, yeah.
And especially the white or the gray makes for a really good painting surface. You don't really need to sand as much. It's a lot more porous, and that makes for a great primer layer or what have you.
Gotcha.
So,
now,
yeah, how about yourself?
Those are designed to put a can inside, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So you're not drinking directly from that plastic.
Correct.
Got it.
Yeah, you could. And what I found as well, this is another way to go, is you can buy these little Tossware inserts. These are food safe, and
very cool.
And they fit right in.
Oh, other way. There you go.
Learning on the fly here. So they just slide right in. This one's going to go down, but there's an insert you can print for these and bring them up top. So so you can pop your tall cans in these, or just your regular pop cans, beer cans, whatever. They'll all fit there. So yeah, they're
very, very cool.
They are
okay.
Great.
We've got a question from Accord XTC. Jerry, can you bring that up? There we go. He says, my Ender 3 fan is starting to fail for the bearings, and I'm wondering, do I stock replace the fans or go crazy with some aftermarket fans and mounts? What's the best for a noob? Accord, I'm going to tell you that the fans that are on there are what they call sleeve bearing fans. They're not meant to run the way that we run 3D printers, but because they're so cheap, manufacturers put them on. Now, for a couple of dollars, you can still get a good fan. I think they're roughly around $7 or $8. You can find them online. Look for a ball bearing or double ball bearing fan. It's going to last you longer. It's going to be quieter in the long run as well. So yeah, I would not replace it with a stock fan. I would go and have a look. If it is your part cooling fan, you're going to want to. That is going to be on the Ender 3 a blower style fan, and you can find those all over. I think they're a 4010 blower fan for those, and you can find them all over the internet. If you want to get them from AliExpress, you can even find them on Amazon, I'm sure. I think that's where I got my last one.
And so yeah, I can flip this around. So the Noctua fans, there's an issue with putting them on your printer, correct? They have a lower CFM, I think it is?
Yes. They don't move as much air. They're quiet.
So they're nice and silent, which is great for a PC, but where you're trying to really control those temps and get a good extrusion, you need that CFM or cubic feet per minute rating. Yep.
So yeah, you want to go with a fan that is meant for 3D printing. Noctuas, the reason that Noctuas became so popular in the zeitgeist of 3D printing is because at the end of the day, they were silent, and that's what people were after, was that silence. Because at the beginning, 3D printers were loud. They made noise. They would sing to you like whales, as my wife used to say.
It's whale song.
That's funny.
And now that we're moving into the technology, and we've been now for that last couple of years moving into 32-bit technology and moving into silent steppers, things are now a lot quieter. But where things stand out, of course, in the noise factor, is the fans. And if you replace stock fans, always replace them with a ball bearing or double ball bearing fan. Double ball bearing fans are more expensive, but they are going to last you a little bit longer.
And if you're buying one, buy two or three, because you're going to go through them again at some point.
Yeah. From Alteracious, he says, if I had the choice between a BLTouch and a 3D Touch, black one, which would you recommend for reliability and why, ignoring cost? Well, they're both basically the same. In all honesty, the 3D Touch is built on the same technology as the BLTouch. The BLTouch is your original, and everybody's kind of copied them going forward. So at the end of the day, I still always say go with what works for you. But if you can afford the BLTouch, do the BLTouch. It's going to last you longer than the knockoff brands. And I'm not a big fan of knockoff brands because we know how the QC goes on knockoffs. Some people love the Touch, the 3D Touch. Some people love the BLTouch. I always recommend the BLTouch first and foremost. What about you?
I've actually used both. I'm up to like 3 or 4 FDM printers now. I just wish with the BLTouch, I wish they would either have a metal pin on it, or even a lightweight metal, fine. Something that's not going to break at just the first bump on something. Because those pins to replace, they're proprietary for the most part. As far I haven't seen another OEM type part for them.
Yeah.
So that's my only wish there. And I mean, you can print what I'm about to say, but I wish they might include just a little cage or something that would fall down, or you could put it back up after it's done. You could even insert the G code to pause it there for a second. You could put the cage on it there, so it's protected, right? Because those pins, they break, and also it's annoying to have to go in there and pop in a new one, right? So that's my only gripe there.
Now, my understanding why they made that change from the metal pin that they used to have in the BLTouch to the, I guess they're made from nylon, is because when the pin failed, or when the BLTouch failed, it would catch on prints and it would totally destroy the BLTouch. And that's why they moved to these pins, because you don't have to buy a new BLTouch. You just have to replace the pin. I get what you're saying, absolutely. I like the metal pins. I thought they were better overall for the product, but I understand why they made that change. 3D Jeff says, personally, I like my TH3D Easy ABL. I love it. I think that's great. If it works for you, awesome. I mean, I'm not a big fan of inductive sensors, just because when things start to heat up, and I know that Tim over at TH3D, he's been moving forward, and he's really done some research into it and has made a much better product than his first generation product. I still have one of the first gens. It's sitting in a box. But at the end of the day, it's all dependent on what works for you. Now, that being said, I don't prefer inductive sensors or capacitive sensors. I put an inductive sensor in the Voron because that's what the BOM calls for. But at the end of the day, if I could have put a BLTouch in there, I probably would have. And I still can. I could put a BLTouch in there. But I'm going to try it out the way that they recommend, and we'll see how well it works. A lot of people say it works great. So What do we have next, Jerry? Anything?
No.
You got nothing.
Everybody's just hello to everybody.
And just, I didn't get to clarify, but fair warning, some small children may run in about 15 minutes, and at some point I may have to go put one of them to bed. So just
that's
you're
okay.
Getting raw today.
We'll forgive you. In all fairness, I called Morgan at 15 minutes before showtime, and he was still out looking at a house.
I was in Seaton.
So,
yep.
A Snapshot FPV says CR-10 V2 at power on a cold zone seems to flow plenty of air, but when I print, starts flow decreases significantly. That has been replaced. Any ideas why? On your CR-10 V2, it's slowing down, or is it? I'm not quite getting what he's saying here.
I wonder if he's done a PID auto tune since he changed that.
Yeah, I'm wondering
if you've done any changes in that respect due to fans or anything in the hot end. Just run that PID auto tune. I pretty much run it. Sometimes I just run it on a weekly basis if something has changed in the environment or whatever. That's usually a good starting point for me, anyways.
Yeah, he's saying it's the fan that decreased. The fan speed decreased. I'm wondering if maybe
power.
it must sound like there's a power flow issue to that fan.
Mm-hmm.
Just make sure that in your slicing software that you have the fan on at 100%, because it may come on at 100%, but if you're in your slicing software, and I've seen this happen because some of us switch from PLA to PETG or even to ABS. PETG does still require a little bit of airflow, not much, but it does require a little bit. And people will go from 50 down to 30% fan speed for materials like PETG, and then forget they put PLA in their machine and forget to change those settings. So maybe just check that. That could be part of the problem without really looking at it. I can't give you any more ideas. Maybe put a multimeter on that fan and just unplug it from the board, put a multimeter on it and see if it's getting the proper voltage. That might be something to try as well.
If it's always decreasing at the same point, like, I don't know, layer 3 or 4 or something like that, that's definitely your slicer. If it's just random, totally, you're gonna have to bring out the multimeter and check your lines out. Unfortunately, you just gotta. It's troubleshooting, and troubleshooting is just dividing until you find the problem. That's what
part of the hobby.
Yep,
definitely part of the hobby. How can you program the flash on a 32-bit board via USB instead of via SD card? There are some programs out there like what is that program that everybody is using now? It is a Microsoft program. Looking for it right. What is it called? I can't remember. I can't remember what it's called. Why am I drawing a blank on that? Because I haven't used it in a while. That's probably why. The viewer that we use to do the programming now instead of using the Arduino software. Yeah, the alternative to the Arduino software, Visual Code Studio. There we go. Visual Studio Code. That's the one. When you're using Visual Studio Code, you can actually, if you're using the big tree boards, you can actually run SD right to that board and just let your Visual Studio Code know what port you're on, and then it will send it every time through that port and to the board. So that's one way that you can flash the latest editions of the board, as long as you have the latest edition of VS Code. James Lane has one there. What's the easiest way to change your Marlin configuration files to newer versions without a lot of manual effort? When the Marlin team changes the layout versions of configuration files, a lot of times what they will do is they will put those configuration files in an examples folder, and all you simply have to do is take that config and config advanced, and just dump them into the file folder that is running Marlin. You can just pull it out and then just reflash your card and put the card back into your printer. That's the easiest way to do it. It's just copy and paste.
And one trick I'll just throw in, a trick that I do there, if you're looking at the editor, is just to change your version number by .1 or something like that. Mm-hmm. Then you know that I mean, there's other things you can check too, but that's something you know that you did, or put your initials in there or whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But then you know that, oh, I was at .0 before, for example, and now I'm at .1. Okay, it took. Great. Carry on.
That's the easiest way to do it, I think. James has another quick question here. How can I prevent blobs and stringing when printing NinjaFlex on the Ender 3 Pro without retraction enabled? Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to, because NinjaFlex, because it is a flexible polymer, is going to string. It's naturally going to string. I've printed TPU, TPE, and a couple of other flexibles, a flexible PLA as well. And to be perfectly honest with you, I cannot avoid stringing, and I'm in a very dry climate. I've tried everything from retraction to no retraction, up, down, sideways. You are just going to get stringing. The easiest way to do it to eliminate most of the stringing is, first and foremost, make sure that filament is dry. Because those rubber polymers, like PETG, tend to absorb moisture molecules from the surrounding air. And that is one of the reasons that they cause stringing. There's a great tutorial, I believe, on the Matter Hackers website about dealing with NinjaFlex and how to reduce a lot of it. And I encourage you to go and check that out.
Yeah, they're a good resource for a lot of different issues, and they've got great videos on them too. I've used them a lot.
Yeah, me too. Mm-hmm. I use them all the time. All right, so from Art Eckstein, he says, yeah, but like last week I tried bug fix and example config H for my machine and would not accept it. Said was for old version, how to manually do config H. Well, you have to reflash it for starters. You'll have to reflash the board for starters. Now, I never use the builds, the unstable builds, or the bug fix. I wait till those bug fixes are incorporated into a stable build. And this seems to be a big problem with a lot of 3D printers that are using Marlin, because when you put out a bug fix, it may fix one thing, but it may break something else. And if it's going back and if you're going back and using an older version of that config H file, and you've been using a newer version, see where I'm going here? It'll get confused really, really quickly. So I would say,
and you have to decide if like what's the cost benefit here.
Yeah.
If you know it's going to fix a big issue you're having, great. But you also, as those nightly builds come out, you're kind of their guinea pig, to be honest. So if you're just upgrading for the sake of upgrading, don't do it.
Yeah.
Just wait. Let things percolate through. Let the other reports come in. Unless you have a dedicated printer you just like trying things out on, but it's not your everyday printer. Okay, great. But let those other reports come in. And let the code team fix things, because Richard's point is absolutely correct. You're going to see other things crop in that you just didn't anticipate, and it sucks.
To some degree, we are all guinea pigs when we buy new versions of printers too, because a lot of times companies will put something out there, and although this Marlin is completely community driven, but printer companies will put something out there with older versions of firmware, not giving you the latest version of the firmware, and you go and try and update it, and then there's some confusion. There was a comment made by Gary Tarasoff, another good friend of ours. He says you can use Notepad++ to compare the version that you just downloaded to the version that is already on your machine. Keep them in separate folders, date them, is my recommendation. Then pull them in and do a compare. You can also do that in VS Code as well. Next question, Jerry. This is from Tim Stockel. I hope I said that right. He says, hey man, just watching your Marlin setup video for at least the 1000th time. However, for some reason, my ventilator settings appear to be mixed up and are always running using the CR2.2.1 board. They're always running. I think you've got something switched back there. And ventilator, I'm assuming you mean your fan. Your fans are probably plugged into the wrong spot on the board. I know that it seems like such a simple thing, and but Tim, I would open up that board and just switch those two around, and you should be back on track.
Yeah, you'll know that it's not the part cooling fan. One of them will always turn on right on as soon as you power on the board. That's my troubleshooting step there. I just do that.
That is for sure. Okay. Any ideas how to fix them? Okay, well, we covered that. James Lane saying, I love Notepad++ with the Compare plugin. Yes, it works great. Last night I downloaded the FTP plugin for Notepad++ because, of course, you guys all know that I'm working on the Voron. Really quickly, I want to thank all you guys for last night that showed up and sat with us while we explained what's been happening with the channel. Tim says he checked this already 3 times and switched them in any possible way. The part cooling fan still keeps on running. I'm going, you know what, Tim, send me a message through Facebook Messenger. Just go over to our Facebook group and you can find me there and just send me a message. Send me a picture of that board and where your fans are plugged in, and I'll see if I can't suss it out for you and send you back the proper diagram for wiring that. That'll get you
Hopefully
up and running a little faster.
Hopefully it's not something awry in the pins file or something like that.
Yeah, that could be too. There
Those
could
are
be
always
something
fun.
wrong in the pins file. All right. We have nothing else so far. All right. So you asked me what...
I was just going to speak to your comment there about printer companies sending things out in the wild. So a little quick story here. I picked up off of Kickstarter the JG Maker Artist D Pro. Mm-hmm. Lots of promise, but yes, some things mechanically needed a little more bake time. They're under their second or third firmware, and more bake time is needed there too. So, especially in that regard, if you're getting something off of Kickstarter, really don't have an expectation that you're going to get a fully boiled, fully baked product. They're just, for whatever reason, whether it's cost or resources or all the above, they don't have the ability to fully test these things, and it's just. Unfortunately, it's a bit of the way of the industry right now. Your Crealities of the world, sure, but they even sometimes they don't get everything right all the time too. Yeah. So
the Pro is a great example of that.
A lot of moving pieces. Yeah,
the Pro was a really good example of that. We have Matt Gurman here. He says, "Hi, Geraldine Ham. You have a fan."
That's because I said hi to him.
Okay. My wife has fans.
Tim's here now.
DeWitt says, sorry I'm late. It's okay. You can be late. That's fine. We've got, you were asking me what I'm printing. I, right now, am printing part for a client for a Voron build. I have been printing them on my one of my FlashForge machines. It was going great until, I don't know why, but I have to go back. Well, I do know why, because I have to go back and set my offset again. But I've been going through mats on that thing like crazy. About every third print, the ABS just seems to stick like crazy. And I get underneath, and of course, with my scraper, it gouges the bed and just pulls up a piece of that topping, and away you go. And it's a BLTouch style top. which is fine. I have no problem with that. But when you are running at 105 degrees, which I do on that bed in the Flash Forge, it just tends to, at times, separate the actual bed mat from the adhesive on the back, and it'll just, the tiniest microscopic bubble, very easy to grab and then tear up. So I've got a little bit of tuning to do on that machine again, and I've been running it pretty hard lately with the two colors and ABS. So yeah, that's all that's been running here at the studio, and of course we're trying to get stuff made for our booth out in the market in Okotoks. So that's, kind of the other stuff that we're doing. So there you go.
Printing,
Awesome.
printing.
The Apprentice 2021, that's our friend across the pond. That's Jim Prentice. And if you don't know who Jim Prentice is, he is a builder of robots, all 3D printed. And I encourage you to go and check out some of his live streams. They've been building, did they just finish it, or are they still building a smaller droid, remote control droid? He can probably attest to that. But he has to run, so we thank you for showing up. Gary says, I need to do some tuning. I have been having issues printing M3D carbon fiber PETG. Yes, you're going to have to do some printing or some tuning with that. Morgan, I have your role here. I'm going to be photographing it this afternoon. And I got to get a bunch of stuff photographed for M3D anyway. So, but yeah,
Gary,
if you're,
I hope you're printing with these. These are some hardened steel nozzles that I have ready to go to start printing with that CF PET G there. So hopefully you're doing that. Yeah, PET G. It's always fine. But I mean, the great thing about it is once you get it, it's great.
Yep.
I know. I almost struggled with it for a year before I got it finally troubleshot and figured out. But once you've got it dialed in, it's not too much more than PLA in terms of cost for what you're getting, and not as finicky as ABS. So, yeah.
And you don't need an enclosure
there. Exactly. And you don't have the VOCs.
Yes.
Which are nice too.
Correct. The one thing
out of it, but not as bad.
The one thing I can say about Matter 3D's ABS in terms of the VOCs is that it's very low. I print like all day long, and it's very, very low. I very seldomly
the other
smell it.
Stuff on the market, I can't think of another one that has such low VOCs. Yeah.
He converted the brass nozzle from 0.4 to 1.5 using carbon fiber. Yeah, carbon fiber is going to ruin brass nozzles all day long. All day long. So what I would do in terms of that is you do want to move to a hardened steel, stainless steel, nozzle X, whatever you can get that is not a brass nozzle. Because anything that's got an abrasive in it, carbon fiber, glow in the dark, metal fill, glitter fill, wood, and you're going to shake your head at wood, but it needs to have a little bit bigger of an orifice because it's got to pass all that material through, and it can't be brass. It has to be stainless steel, hardened steel, or even a ruby, and I don't recommend rubies because there's so much hype around the rubies, but they're just not worth the price. All right, so that one's done. Wow, we've got silence. Silence is golden.
Not when you have children, it's not.
No, not when you have children. It's not. No, that's for sure. That's for sure.
That means something is about to go horribly wrong.
Yes. Oh wow, we're just like halfway through the show. Why is it going so slow today? I don't know. I don't understand. So we've got more pictures coming. Last night I was working on the Voron, just to add a little filler here, and I now have come to a point where I'm stuck. I realized that one of my turbo boards that I just got is not working. So I'm going to replace. I have a 1.4 board that I'm just going to replace one of the turbos with. 1.4 and the 1.4 turbo, there's not a lot of difference between them in terms of the way that they look and how they function. I think it's the processor that's a little faster on the turbo boards, or there's something that makes it just a little bit faster. So I'm just going to swap it out for a 1.4 and see if I can't get it to recognize the firmware that I've done for what is that software now?
So what was happening or not happening on the one that you've taken out of it?
No light.
So
it's getting power, but there are no lights lighting up. So I know that there's power coming from the power supply to the board. The fan headers seem to be working, or at least one of them does. So I think there's something wrong on the board. So I'm going to pull it. I'm going to send it back and get a replacement. Matt Gurman, he says, I've ordered Ruby 1s. Did not last long for me. 80 euros down the toilet. The problem with, here's how I see the Rubies. They look cool. The Ruby end is great, but it's like a ring that is not set in the right material. Like a stone that in a ring that's not set in the right material. If it were me, I would have set that into a higher quality material. I know it's hard to make steel rings and things like that. They could have done it with another material. The problem is that lip that holds that ruby in there, that ruby nozzle, that drilled ruby nozzle in there, is so thin. I've seen where customers have brought back when I was over at Spool, where it has literally sheared off, and that whole ring is just peeled right off. So there's not much material holding that on, and if that brass gets pretty hot pretty fast, and it does expand. So again, that expansion causes that nozzle to get a little loose. So at the end of the
softer metal too.
Yeah,
so,
much softer. So at the end of the day, they need to, if they go into a version 2 of these nozzles, they need to put them into a different material, I think, and they might be a real winner. But at 80 euros, what are they? 130 Canadian, I think. 120, 130 Canadian. They're not cheap.
I don't. Again, cost benefit. I don't see the value there.
Accord XTC. Aman's not supposed to be telling you that. He says, Richard, I was speaking with Aman, who said they're going to be doing the TFL purple in PLA soon. Have you heard of any updates yet? Yes, I have. The purple sample that he gave to me, and I have one here, is a little too plum. So there's a little too much red in the purple. So it's dark, and it looks a little too plum. So I gave him a sample of some ABS that I had here in terms of color. Oh, look at that.
The original. I actually just cracked open my TFL purple that I got like a year ago because I had a customer that wanted some purple.
Nice.
So yeah, it's
that looks great.
He'll have to meet this standard as we say.
Gave him a roll of art.
Yeah, I gave him some leftover of stuff that we had. But yeah, we will be getting it soon. And at the end of the day, we're going to test it here. We're going to get it both in PLA and ABS. ABS being first because of the things that we're doing with the Voron. We are going to be producing TFL special edition parts for Voron pretty soon. And that'll be in our gray and our purple being the dominant color. And then the gray will be the accent color. So something to watch. Alteracious, thoughts on hybrid copper nozzles? And what about dual Z using a pulley or 2Z stepper? The pulley, if you're using a pulley between the 2Z rods, using something like this, using something like this on the top of the rods to keep them in sync with one another. It works great. I don't think I have any printers that are using that setup anymore. I had one. I think I gave it to Brian, and Brian hates it. Absolutely hates it. And it's not worth it, to be perfectly honest. As far as hybrid copper nozzles go, hybrids can handle higher temperatures, but be aware of where you're buying the hybrids from. If you're buying a copper plated nozzle, that's going to wear better than a brass nozzle. But still, when you get into using, those abrasive materials, you can get through that outer layer fairly quickly and then start wearing on the copper underneath. Again, I always recommend stainless steel or the higher grade nozzles for doing anything like that. Now, as far as the steppers go, if you're putting dual Z steppers on something like an Ender 3, I don't really think that an Ender 3 needs it, to be perfectly honest with you. If you've set it up correctly at the beginning, you don't really need it. If you haven't, and you're still having problems, I would take apart that whole gantry and then just make sure that it's square by using something of equal size on both ends. And you guys have heard me talk about these guys before. These are the machinist blocks. I basically double them up like that, drop my gantry down on both sides with an unloaded set of wheels. So I take that eccentric nut on the back and I will unload the tension on them. So I bring that inner wheel further away from the extrusion that is going up and down. I will level it out using these. Then I will tighten each side as I go. And I'm not going to just tighten one side and then go and put a full load on the other side. I'm going to do a little bit at a time in small increments till all my wheels are nice and not super tight, but tight enough that you can't freely spin them. It's going to take a little bit of work to spin them. And then you'll always have a perfect gantry across the Z on your X. I hope that answers your question. If that's how I understand it.
And I can speak a little bit to the sync belt for the double Z's there. Only really seems to make sense in a scenario where you've got a lot of weight on that X gantry. Like maybe you've got a really heavy or like a heavy hot end setup, or I've got one here has it's IDEX, right? So has both on there. And in part of my troubleshooting, I took that belt off, and then worked on things, and then I ended up putting it back on. It actually prevented the whole thing from falling down. So that was you gotta experiment a bit and work through and figure out. To your point, Rich, I think that's an excellent point though about not adding something to the problem to try and solve the problem. Solve the problem you're originally having. If you add in dual sync there, you're adding something else to the equation. Solve the first equation, and if you really want it from there, go from there, but don't add something to your problem. Trust me, I've done it. Don't do it.
Me too.
Don't go there.
Me too. Mr. Darkhawk, 1972. That's a cool name. Go ahead, Morgan. What were you saying?
I think I need to hop off.
Okay.
But it's been a pleasure. I hope to join you again in the future. And to all the fathers out there, all my best. Happy Father's Day. You earned it.
You bet. Thanks for joining us today for as long as you could, Morgan. I'll be talking to you in the next day or two. Oh, we lost his audio. There we go. Okay, well, we'll just cut back. All right, so hey guys, he says, got the Arion Silk Silver PLA on your recommendation. It comes out pretty nicely, but I noticed that the prints are a bit more brittle. That normal, or is there a setting I need to change? In terms of brittle, are you getting layer separation? Is it easy to squeeze? As far as that goes, what I would do with that material, depending on what you're printing, maybe try adding a little bit more infill. Check your print as it's printing. Make sure that it's not under extruding, because it can actually under extrude at times If you did not, and I always recommend this, do one of these guys, and it is a temperature tower. Really do a temperature tower every time you are using a new material, because this is going to give you an indication of where you need, the best indication of where you need to do or where you need to set your temperatures for that material. Now, if you don't know how to do one of these, we do have a video over on our channel here on YouTube. Check it out. It's really easy to do if you're using Cura. It's actually really easy to do if you're doing any type of or using any type of slicer. It pretty much works the same. But do a temperature tower, and that may solve some of your problems. What do we got next, G? Yeah, oh, sorry. There we go. Robert 954, he says, how can you tell that a stepper motor is failing? Usually what will happen with a stepper motor, if it fails or if it's failing, it's going to, a couple of things I've noticed on printers in the past, it may start jittering while everything else is working. And that could be a twofold problem. One, the stepper driver itself could be going bad. Usually motors don't seize up unless they've had a lot of force put on them and they've cracked something internally. Usually it's a stepper driver first, not the motor itself. And if you can get bad motors, that's true, but usually it's a stepper driver first. If you have another motor, Robert, that you can swap it out with just to see if the new motor is turning, then it's not the stepper driver, then it's the motor. But if it does the same thing, usually it'll be a stepper driver. All right. Oh, okay, sorry. I'm not allowed to. I did a temp tower, same one as yours, actually. Okay, good. And what were the temperatures you were printing at, Mr. Darkoff? That's what I need to know. What's the next one? Stephen Carvelis. I think I said that right. I'm upgrading my CR-10 V2 to an all-metal hot end with a new heater cartridge and the PT100 thermistor and daughter board. Where can I locate a regular 5-volt DC source on my main board? Depending on the board, if you're using the regular Creality board in there, I don't know that it has a breakout 5-volt rail. I haven't seen that board in a while. You may actually have to put in a buck converter. I wonder if I have one here on my desk. I don't think I do. But you may have to put in a buck converter and then just downgrade that 24-volt line to the voltage that you need. That may be how you're going to have to do that. Next, 220 degrees. Seems like the support material is drier and easier to break. It could very well be. It might be even a bad batch of material. Sometimes it can happen. If you're using a material that, and I've had this happen where I've had great success with the material and then just for whatever reason, the newest roll I bought doesn't work very well. And knowing, because I've used a lot of materials in the time that I've been doing this, sometimes you just get a bad batch. Now, Aeron's pretty good about replacing their rolls. Now, here's something I want to caution everybody about. If you are having a tough time printing something with a new material, after you've done a temperature tower and, tried to create, your test print with it, that sort of thing, if you're having a tough time with that material, if this doesn't come out great, then don't continue to try and use that material. Bag it up, contact the company you bought it from, let them know the problems that you're having, and then get a replacement. And usually companies are pretty good about getting you a replacement. Now, if you've used a roll of material and you come back to them and say, okay, so this is EcoTough. This material is real crap. I don't know what's going on. And you bring me back a roll like this, you know what I'm going to tell you? Hit the bricks, because you're not getting a new roll. It's like going into a restaurant, eating the meal, and then telling the waitress that the meal tastes like crap, but you ate the whole thing. Do your temp tower, do a test print. If it's causing you problems, then return the roll and let them know what the problems are that you're having. And usually you can get a replacement. Jerry's doing our there we go. There's Scott Warwick. He says, in your stream last night, Brian referenced you guys were transitioning over to Clipper. Is there something you recommend for OEM printers, such as Ming Rock 3 Pro, Ender 5, Ender 3, Aquila, etc.? Let me do some more research. Clipper, we're not moving over to Clipper. Clipper is part of the Voron build. It is baked right into the Voron build, so it's something that they use. I am going to be experimenting more with Clipper as we move forward. I have a Ender 3 here that has a Raspberry Pi in it. I'm going to put Octoprint on it, and I am going to run Clipper off of it, and I am using an SKR board in there. So as we get closer to that, and I know more about Clipper, I will teach you how to use it with OEM boards. I do have a couple of printers upstairs that I can add Octoprint to with Clipper as the front end. So just hang on to that, Scott, and we'll get to that and teach you a little bit more about it. DeWitt says, I've run a lot of Arion silk filament, various colors. Yes, some of them can be more brittle than others. I had to slow down my print speed with a couple colors to get stronger prints. That's a great idea. Slow down your prints. Let's see if that changes how you're printing. Thanks for the sanity check. As a beginner, it's always great to check with more experienced folks. You are so very welcome. And that's why we do this show. Just for some of you guys that are new here, when I got started in 3D printing, and I've told this story before, there was nobody out there to teach you how to 3D print. Some of the people that I've come to know in the industry and know in the hobby, all they want to do is just show you what they printed with what material on what printer and send you on your way. And that frustrated me to no end when I got started in 3D printing. And my wife can attest to the frustrations I had when I went and grabbed a hammer one day and I was ready to take it to the first printer that I had. Eventually, I calmed down. I objectively looked at it. I did put money into that printer to make it work. I learned a lot along the way, and I wanted to be able to take people like yourself that is new to the hobby and give them something tangible that they could work with. And, give them some ideas on how to solve the problems, if not directly showing you how to solve the problems. And in upcoming videos, we are going to be looking at problem solving. Brian and I have been talking about it quite a bit lately. And like we said last night in our impromptu live stream, to just kind of give a channel update, that people really need to slow down. And we want to get back to what we do best, and that is helping you solve your problems. We're not professionals. We're just like you. We're hobbyists, and we do 3D printing, and we've learned from our mistakes so that you hopefully don't have to make those same mistakes. And that's what we want to get back to for each and every one of you. 3D Jeff, GST 3D is really good at customer service. They know they had some problems and set things right. On the doorstep 3 days later from Florida to Indiana. Indiana, great. That is awesome. We like customers that have a company that takes care of them. Now, I will say this, there are companies out there that really don't care about their customers. They say they do, but when customers have an issue, because a lot of these companies are out of Asia, the problem is there's a huge language barrier. So you may be explaining your problem to them, and they're going to go, send me pictures, send me this, send me that. The pictures don't speak volumes about what is the problem, because they're not seeing video, they're not seeing, they're not hearing, they're not tangibly touching it. Other companies are great. Creality went through this growing pain. Their customer service is way better than it was a few years ago. Other companies out there that have come onto the scene in the last couple of years, really tough time working with them to get stuff done. And they just don't understand the North American market like some other companies do. Creality being one of those companies that has made strides. And we got to thank Naomi Wu, the sexy cyborg, for a lot of that, because at the end of the day, she went in and got them to open up their open source aspects of their company, such as the firmware. Now you can download not just .hex files, but you can download the raw source file. Because they're using Marlin, Marlin says that if you are going to use this in a commercial setting, if you alter it in any way, you have to provide that source code to the customer. Other companies out there, and there's one that I'm going to be doing a board install and review on, they sent me no software. They've just preloaded the software onto the board, so I have no idea how it's going to function. They've not given me the source code so that I can have a look at it. Other companies have had to twist their arm to get source code, and that's a problem because they don't make it readily available. They think by doing a hex file that they're giving you the source code. They're really not. They're just giving you a pre-done file that you slide onto the card, stick it into the machine, and then the machine reads that hex file and updates the firmware.
And hopefully it's all right.
Exactly. All right. I know that was kind of long-winded.
This might be our last.
Okay, sorry. Can you bring that question back up, honey? This is from Biggie Cheese. That's a great name, by the way. I'm trying to print a 2-day project of the Velociraptor head mount and don't know what supports I need. It is printing one piece and it's vertical, so I think the teeth need support. Any suggestions? Depending on the slicer that you're using, if you're using the latest version of Cura, for things like teeth, I would use tree supports. They will branch up and support those teeth, which is a great way of doing it. And I think that will...
It's a smaller footprint, too, so it won't leave as big a mark on it.
Yeah, that's true. It's a much smaller footprint, so you'll have a lot less cleaning up to do where the scarring may occur from where the attachment is. So that's what I would try. I'd try tree supports with something complicated like that skull. So that brings us to the end of the show. Actually, we're ending on time today. Awesome. Please keep Brian and his family in your thoughts today. Happy Father's Day to everybody. Brian will be back with us next week. We got a brand new episode coming out for you next week as well. Our members will get to see it on Friday, and our regular viewers will get to see it on Saturday morning. We are going to be doing another live stream. We won't get it in the month of July, I'm sorry. Live stream for our members, and this time we are not going to be broadcasting that live. That's going to be for our members, a private talk with us.
Members only.
Members only. And if there's some content, we may cut it together in another episode and let you guys enjoy that. But for now, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. You guys deserve it. And relax, kick back, have a beer, have a one of your favorite libations. Go out and enjoy the weather if you've got nice weather where you are. And remember that the first layer is always your foundation to a great print. We'll see you later in the week.